Before we start this presentation, let's do a little trivia so you can guess who the topic will be about today. This company first started out by selling books online in 1995. The company's CEO became the world's richest man with a net worth of around $180 billion. Today, it's one of the world's largest online retailer and prominent cloud services provider, headquartered in Seattle, Washington. And lastly, you probably use some of their prime products, which have insane quick shipping. Hi, everyone. My name is Meghana Dandu.
Hey, everybody. My name is Alex Swin.
Hey, everybody. My name is Daniela Lopez.
My name is Martin Bredick.
And by now, you've probably guessed who we're going to be talking about. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and his letters to his shareholders. Next slide. In this presentation, we're going to go over a brief overview, summary, specific examples, favorite things, dislikes, and a conclusion to tie everything together on why you should purchase this book. To get started, the book was published on July 3rd, 2019 by Steve Anderson and is able to shed light on Jeff Bezos' letters to his shareholders to improve his business. I'm now going to pass it on to Daniela to talk about the overall summary.
Thank you, Meghana. So the Bezos Letters is a product of author Steve Anderson combing through Jeff Bezos' letters to his key Amazon shareholders. In the book, Steve Anderson explains that 14 principles rooted in the exponential growth of Amazon over the past decade. Whether you've owned a business for 10 years or if you're thinking about owning your business post-graduation, these growth strategies tell everything about how Bezos took risks to grow his small online bookstore to the multi-billion-dollar business it is today, and will be beneficial no matter what industry you plan on going into. Next slide, please. Take a look at this quote from the book. The biggest risk most businesses take today is not taking enough risks. The Amazon Echo smart speaker we all know today was one of Jeff Bezos' largest risks he took on back in 2013. Since no customers were specifically asking for a smart speaker to enter the market, he was simply just wondering about the potential of such a product. Now, Amazon has sold over 100 million Echo speakers. This principle of taking risks is sprinkled all throughout the book, whether it's about Amazon's ventures into new markets or entirely new industries. This brings great value to us as students since we can apply these principles to our general lifestyles and behaviors to ensure that we'll be as successful as possible. Since we're all business students, let's talk about risk, and not in the context of our finance and accounting classes. Take a moment to think about a time you regretted not taking a risk. Was it not attending a professional networking event, or not reaching out to a potential mentor in your ideal industry? Or was it that you didn't apply to your dream internship, similar to myself? In an interview with CNBC, Bezos stated that every new hire that Amazon takes on raises the bar for the next. So in each semester of your undergraduate career, aim to raise the bar for yourself each semester so that you can feel more confident about taking on more risks. After all, and even though what I'm about to say is cheesy, we miss 100% of the shots that we don't take. Now, I'll pass it on to Meghana to talk about another example.
Thank you, Daniela. The book is able to leave almost little clues on how the company could be so successful. Since the shareholder letters are written in public, you can see year by year how Bezos' thought process works. One of the biggest takeaways I had included how the author sheds light on the importance of the long term rather than looking for instant gratification. He mentions that the fundamental measure of our success will be shareholder value we create over the long term. As mentioned in the book, some shareholders might be looking towards quarterly earnings, but Bezos will be trying to see what would be the most beneficial 10 years down the line. In his 1997 letter, he mentions how we are working to build something important, something that matters to our customers, something that we can tell our grandchildren about. This can be applied to any aspect of your life and could be very helpful, whether it's with financials, relationships, your career, etc. In an article by the Harvard Business Review by Tricia Gregg and Boris Groisberg, the number of references to customers was inconsistent throughout the years and has only recently stabilized. At one point, Bezos spent almost 40% of his letter discussing customers. Starting in 2013, he consistently devoted less than 15% of his letters to discussing customers. It was also mentioned that he could have found the optimal level of customer centricity as Amazon has matured. Through the years, the company's customer has focused, but his letters devote approximately around 12%. This potentially allows him to maintain his customer-focused lens while leaving other space to explore. I will now pass it on to Alex so he can talk about another example in the book.
Thank you, Meghna. So for example 3, we focused on 3 principles that relate to JSOM students at UT Dallas. All students often come from lower income families and chose UT Dallas for that reason. As seen in the amount of debt in the chart, we're very low compared to Texas and the United States as a whole, almost half as much as the United States. And furthermore, students often choose a business major because they have a general interest in business as a whole. So for favorite things, we focused on 3 principles that relates to business students. Frugality is a very common concept for students because of their interest in finance and business. And a lot of students tend to want to learn more and expand our knowledge. At UT Dallas, a lot of students are competitive and insist on the highest standards. And now Meghna would like to add some remarks.
Thank you, Alex. Overall, one of the most beneficial things we saw was that the book was really good at explaining business terms that people with various backgrounds could understand. It's able to properly teach the reader with real-life examples and situations they can comprehend from big companies such as Apple and Facebook. By dropping little hints in each chapter, it's able to keep the reader wanting more. It goes in chronological order, tracing his footsteps and taking the reader along with him. If someone wants to see how the world's richest man carved a path for his future, this is a great book to read. I'm now going to pass it on to Martin so he can talk about some of the dislikes the group felt in the book as a whole.
Thank you, Meghna. When I'm talking about the dislikes, I'm not really trying to say that the author was wrong or the book is bad. We're just trying to figure out what are the factors that took away from the good parts of the book and why this happens. The first dislike we found was that some of the ideas mentioned were surface level and some of them were not. So when the parts were surface level, it was often because the author repeated ideas over and over again without additional elaboration. So many people could say this is because the author was an external party and never actually worked for Amazon, but that's not really a good excuse in this case because Amazon was his main reference for the whole book. Our second dislike was that there was a focus inconsistency throughout the book. So what do I mean by this? So the author's point of view and focal points were not consistent through the book, and it was kind of hard to figure out what exactly he was trying to focus on. For example, he would often talk in first person where he would talk about his own experiences and not talk about Amazon at all. And other times he would switch to third person and talk about the shareholder letters again and go specifically in depth about those things. And the switch between the two was sort of random throughout the book. The combination of these two and the switching between made the book not flow as well, and overall made the book harder to read. Our third dislike was that the author sort of forced some of the ideas from the letters to fit his principle structure. It seemed a bit unnecessary for the author to even come up with his own principles because Amazon already has their own leadership principles within the company. We think the author should have done one of two things differently. One, he should have completely focused on Amazon and went more in depth on their principles and explained and elaborated on those. Or two, he should have used examples from other companies because As it stands, his ideas were sort of one-dimensional. Our last dislike, and the most important one, was that there was a big disconnect between intended audience and actual content within the book. The book has the words "principles to grow your business" in the title. And what that says to me is that the intended audience would be most likely entrepreneurs and small business owners. According to the Small Business Association from 2020, there's about 31.7 million small businesses in the United States, which makes up about 99.9% of the businesses in the United States. And in those businesses, there's about 60.6 million employees, which makes up about 47.1% of all employees in the United States. So that's a pretty big demographic, and we think the author should have focused on that and targeted those people. But the author didn't actually tailor any information or examples from Amazon to those specific smaller businesses. This is in part due to the fact that he only focused on Amazon, which is not a small business in itself, and he especially didn't focus on it when it was starting up, because the book talks about Amazon from 1997 on, when it was a public company. Also, based on the article from Special Issue Small and Family Business Sustainability and Resilience by Marshall and Schrank in 2020, the survival rates for businesses in the US ranges from about 40 to 50% based on a few different factors, which isn't very good if you think about it. And so there's definitely a need to fill there for information and learning, which this book could have filled, but the author just didn't do it, and he went down a different path. Overall, we don't feel like this was necessarily the wrong path, but there was a missed opportunity there, in our opinion. Overall, I don't want to bash the book too much because it is a good book, and anyone who reads it could definitely learn a few things from it. And now I'm going to pass it on to Alex to close us out.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Martin. So as a team, we came to a consensus with 4 key takeaways from the book, and also from research from the Customer Obsession is no longer an option, it's imperative by Mendelsohn in 2020 and other sources. We found the book was very objective by displaying the 14 letters and had very clear advice. The book in general was very detailed, and it's definitely a great self-help book, and it was very motivating. As a team, we highly recommend you guys to purchase the book online on Amazon, either on by paper or. And yeah, thank you guys. We hope you guys have a chance to read the book.
Once again, thank you so much for your time. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to write them down in the discussion board, and we will be able to answer them.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys.